Hello everyone, I'm Kevin Fang, and today I'm going to focus on the speech Television News Coverage, which was presented by Spiro Agnew on 13 November 1969, a special era when television became a political force, when television news reached a broader audience, and when television began to tackle serious issues. Spiro Agnew, the vice president to Richard Nixon at the time, presented his speech, Television News Coverage, in Des Moines, Iowa, to the general public, specifically those who watched news channels. His speech outlined his perspective toward the false impression that media delivered to audience. Throughout his presentation, Vice President Spiro Agnew adopted the use of logical appeal, parallelism, and emotional statement to persuasively convince people that news channels not only displays inaccurate information but also added their personal thoughts. The tone of the speech contained several levels of disdain and criticizing. While he repeatedly emphasized that television news were not true at all, he specifically targeted commentators who criticized President Richard Nixon as a monopoly elected by no one and licensed by governments. During his speech, he discussed how media had mistakenly and probably negatively influenced public's opinion and perception of the truth. He believed that it was people's right to be aware of the truth. By presenting his speech, he not only challenged American people to alter their viewpoints, but also forced commentators to report facts that were accurate and unbiased. Throughout the entire speech, Agnew adopted the technique of logical appeal. His speech contained several lines of logical appeal. For instance, at least 40 million Americans every night, it's estimated, watch the network news. 7 million of them view ABC, the remainder divided between NBC and CBS. According to Harris Poll and other studies, for millions of Americans, the networks are the sole source of national and world news. Based on evidence and facts, he convinced his audience that Americans had been relying on television news for several years. Here, he applied a cause and effect strategy to show the logical connection between the statistics of numbers and how television news been regarded as the primary source to possess national and world news. In addition, it was clearly seen that Agnew's speech contained numerous uses of parallelism. For example, in Will Rogers' observation, what you knew was what you read in the newspaper. Today, for growing millions of Americans, it's what they see and hear on their television sets. He used parallelism with the word what, which added not only balance and rhythm to sentences giving smoother flow of ideas, but also persuasiveness. Furthermore, Agnew included the phrases, in the hands of an elected government, and in the hands of a small unelected elite. These sentences contained similar structures, which added further convincing points toward audience. Last but not least, Agnew used emotional appeal in his speech. He mentioned, for 32 minutes, he reasoned with a nation that has suffered almost 1/3 casualties in the longest war in its history. Here, he explained that President Nixon's decision to rally American people to see the conflict in Vietnam was a righteous movement, and he could not tolerate television news commentators to criticize President Nixon as a monopoly. This emotional statement captured audience emotions, which turned them into the same standpoint with Agnew. As a speaker, Vice President Spiro Agnew used logical appeal, parallelism, and emotional appeal to make his speech more convincing and believable. It also gave public an entire news impression toward him, which people later regarded him as the most influential vice president in America. Surprisingly, his speech in 1969 predicted the way news channels actually worked in current era.